And welcome back to the OSU women's basketball postgame report. This one is for the Cowgirls road trip to Ames to play Iowa State, where the Cowgirls lost their first conference game of the season. What did you guys think about it?
Well, it was a really high-scoring game, which, like we said, the first result that's been different. The Cowgirls are coming in here on a 5-game win streak in conference play, but this game really felt way different than some other conference games we've seen. 90 to 80, the final score. I thought an interesting note in the post-game presser was Coach Littell said that he doesn't like getting in games like this where it's 90 to 80, and that's not exactly how Cowgirl basketball is built. And I think that might have showed a little bit tonight because in a game that was a really crazy shootout, Iowa State just had a little more firepower.
Yeah, in their firepower, it's one thing to have a lot of firepower, but it's another thing to not miss with your firepower. I mean, the Cyclones, they're 48.5% from three, and, they weren't shooting like 10 threes. They made 16 three-pointers. And guys, it just felt that whatever the Cowgirls did, Sam, you even referenced it in the post-game press conference with Coach Littell, whatever Natasha did on one end, and she had a career high, 34 points, an amazing day. The Cyclones would always just come back and hit another three-pointer.
Yeah, one thing that I kind of wanted to mention whenever we're talking about this is that this is OSU's highest conference scoring game of the season, and they still lost by double digits. So if that goes to show you anything, that's a game that, kind of like what Coach was saying, you don't want you don't want it to be a shootout, because if it's a shootout, you're going to be breaking a lot of season records in terms of scoring and point totals. And when you get into a track meet, the team that has the better shooters is probably going to win the game because they're going to be able to make more shots. And I thought today it just looked like Iowa State's players were just a little bit better in terms of shooting. And I think that was basically the entire difference in this game.
Yeah, Jacob, we got to remember this team, Iowa State, they were coming off a program high 19 threes. I believe they referenced it in the ESPN Plus broadcast. That's all time for Iowa State, a program high 19 threes against Texas Tech. So, 16 threes almost hit that mark here tonight. And, that's a big reason why I had those 90 points. But yeah, I think in a vacuum, if we were told that Oklahoma State's going to average 80 in conference play, that they'd take that every day. But, I think that this game, it felt like a really fast-paced game, and I don't think that suits the Cowgirls. This whole game just felt kind of uncomfortable for the Cowgirls. Normally when the Cowgirls can get in the half-court set, have Jane Asbury come off a pick and bounce passes to Natasha Mack, that's going to be the recipe for success. And, when this game got up in transition and players were just kind of hoisting up threes, I'll go to the C word again. I feel like this game was just really uncomfortable. I guess that's a U word, but I guess, it just felt uncomfortable for the Cowgirls all game long, and I guess it ended up showing on the scoreboard in the end.
One player who didn't contribute to the sentiment of uncomfort, Sam, you're talking about, is Natasha Mack. Like, just as a fan, as someone who was watching this game, whenever Natasha Mack got the ball in the post, she had that little hook shot or the fadeaway working today. She was, guys, get this is impressive, 16 of 23 from the field. So she put up a bunch of shots. A lot of them went in. And, Natasha's been going crazy as of late. She had a triple-double not too long ago. I think it was a game ago against TCU. And tonight, a career high 34 points. So Natasha Mack, you hate to see it outshined in a loss where, she'll tell you stats don't matter. But she had a fantastic day, 34 points, super efficient from the field, had a big block on Jones of the Cyclones here. So I thought it was a fantastic day for the Cowgirls engine, Natasha Mack.
Yeah, Noah, what did you think?
So just kind of my initial thoughts after the game. I mean, all four of us, if I remember right, in the pod before this game, we all predicted the Cowgirls to improve to 6-0 in conference play. Is that correct?
Yeah, that is.
Yeah, I think
So
so.
So I mean, everyone gets high on the team, and obviously, as we rightfully should have been. I mean, 5-0 in conference play for Big 12, which is one of the best conferences in the nation. I mean, we had every reason to believe that the Cowgirls had a great chance going out to win this game. But Iowa State, props to them, they are a great team for women's basketball in the Big 12. Like as we were talking about on the pod before about their narrow loss. I mean, they lost to South Carolina, and I mean that they kept it close with them, if I remember correctly. And then now tonight, they just outplayed the Cowgirls. I mean, Cowgirls had a rough night shooting the three. I believe they only knocked down 6 threes, and 4 of them came from Lexi Keys. And I mean, that's just hard to win. I mean, when you play a team like Iowa State that cannot miss from downtown, you're going to have those nights. So I'm not going to be too hard on the Cowgirls because, I mean, when you're playing a team that shoots the ball that good and they are hitting on all cylinders, it's very difficult to win that game. And it's not like the Cowgirls played horribly. I mean, Natasha Mack had a huge game, career high. So, I mean, I'm going to kind of just wait and see until the next game, but I still have very high hopes for this team.
No, I think that's excellent context that you provide because, this was, I think, without a doubt, the Cowgirls' toughest test of the season. So, that 5-0 number, it's really impressive. It puts you at the top of the Big 12 standings, but, there's a difference between playing a TCU team, which I think is 0-5 in the Big 12. The Cowgirls have 2 wins against them, and some other teams, kind of not projected to finish as highly thought of in the Big 12. But, Coach Tell said, starting with this game, the Cowgirls were moving into a tough stretch of the season. Iowa State's going to be a solid, probably tournament team. Probably even, potentially even could be a ranked team here in a second. With their showing tonight, and obviously with Baylor and kind of West Virginia looming. So I think that there were some good takeaways from this game. Like we said, the Cowgirls got some players back. Lauren Fields, Cassie Jalap was back. Lexi Keys and Taylor Collins got more experience on the road against a hard team. But I don't know if how some people take this, but this team, it may have needed a little bit of a reality check. Obviously losses aren't great, and you'd rather learn from winning games than losing games. But this was probably a good lesson on the road of Big 12 games are hard. You have to come out and fight every time, and you're going to lose some games in the Big 12. It's going to be tough.
I said on the last podcast that I wanted to see how this team performed against a team of Iowa State's caliber before I jumped to any conclusions on where this team was going to finish. But in terms of if this was the litmus test, I don't think this was an utter failure. I think there was a lot of good things you can take out of a game like that. I don't think that this team is going to be able to be higher rated than probably Iowa State in conference play, but I think that's not any small thing I'm saying because Iowa State has looked fantastic a lot of the season. So I don't really necessarily think that's going to be a failure for OSU. I do think there's a lot of things you can still improve on, though. I think 3-point defense is probably the one that stood out the most tonight, but that was also because Iowa State just shot lights out. We'll see what happens basically in the next few weeks, and that might determine a little more about this team than just one game context.
And hey, I think that's the mindset Coach Littell had. He said, hey, we lost. We didn't perform as well as we needed to down the stretch. Didn't get stops when we needed to. But I'm proud of my team. I'm proud of our girls. I'm proud of the way players like Cassidy DeLapp, Lauren Fields, Mikey Dennis all came back after an absence from the court. So, hey, Coach Littell has a good mindset. That gives me confidence that this team is going to bounce back in Phillies, is what's going to be a rough next few games for this Cowgirl team. It'll be battles. You got Baylor, West Virginia, Texas. It's going to be a rough game, and we're really going to see the true colors of this team come out in this next week or so.
Yeah, but I think that'll be a good thing, right? I want to see what this team is made of. And kind of like Jacob said, 10 points, double-digit loss, that can kind of seem a little alarming. But I don't think this was utter failure at all for the Cowgirls. If you just look at the period, by breakdowns, Oklahoma State kind of got jumped on a little bit early on, and they got outscored in the first quarter, 20-14. But other than that, it was really an even game. Outscored by 3 in the second quarter as well to put a pretty sizable deficit at halftime. But after that, the Cowgirls were only outscored by 1 in the entire second half. And it was kind of just a back and forth, up and down game. Iowa State was hitting shots. I'm really interested to kind of see the rematch of this game in Stillwater. I think that will be a very good game, actually. We'll see if Iowa State do it again. If their all Big 12, potential first-round pick Jones, not spelt regular, but Jones, can come out and, come out that hot again. But I'll be really interested to see kind of where these two teams manage to go. Like you said, both kind of in tough stretches right now of scheduling.
I think that's a good place that we can leave off. That sums it up just about how I would as well. So for Jacob Sturm, Sam Hutchens, Ben Hutchens, and Noah Weber, here we go. We're getting ready for West Virginia and Baylor up next.